And what I was feeling the need for is to get a little bit more going on Roanoke and see how our plus ones are going to contribute to that.
I read Julianne's mock-up, or rather summary, about the origin of Lydia and its magic system. And that kind of set me on down a road, because I started thinking about the different ways that the story is starting to grow out. And one of the parts of it that is the most fascinating for me, excuse me, is this idea of communication and sharing information and being able to access information and have it be completely at hand but taken for granted because of the way that information flows between the world and the inhabitants. So that's where I began. And the first place that it sent me was I was stuck on this phrase, the origin of Lydia and its magic system, that just kept rolling around in my head. So I thought, okay, I went to my index under M, because I have a ton of stuff about magic systems, both that exist and fictional ones. And I started thinking, okay, I somehow want to tie into that. What does this look like? What would it look like to someone who hadn't experienced this world? So that led me first to my 1800.1 card, which is a summary of the Witch's Almanac from the year 2020. And the thing that jumped out at me, if I can read it, it's written really light in pencil, is something called witch windows. Okay, so then that took me over to the history of the city of Boston and some of the outlying parts in Massachusetts, because it was said, if you look at the houses from a certain era, often in the attic area, they have a window that's crooked. So it's slightly off. And so the window's literally installed on a diagonal. And it was said that they did that to keep witches from flying in and out. Now, if I'm flying on a broom, I'm going to be able to navigate the diagonal. I'm just saying. But that was another piece, because knowing that the ancestors are tricksters and they like to challenge the inhabitants with games and make revelations with games, it set me down this path of thinking of having something that is crooked, something that you have to navigate when you're working on that problem. It becomes not just a problem in your mind, but also a problem in space. So then that led me to back down this idea of communication. And that took me to my arts and humanities psychology of religion, the idea of the clairs, clairvoyance and claircognizance. And I thought, if you have to figure out a way so that you are looking at a problem on a diagonal in order to be able to access the cognition or the cognizance that makes the connection, that's what I'm leaning into. So then my final question became, I was in my 1820.4, which this is actually a card I wrote about my main female character in my novel, but it has application because my question is, can you master all of the clairs, from clairvoyance to claircognizance, clairsentience, and there's a fourth one and I'm blanking on what it is, but it's not relevant to this. Only claircognizance and clairvoyance. Oh, and clairaudience is the other one. So I thought, okay, that's what I'm going to lean into. I want to work up a scene by which Alex in the garden makes some kind of a revelation or a discovery as she's, because in the last piece that I wrote, she's thinking about thinking. She's thinking about how this world is and what the communication looks like and why. And as she's lying on her back looking up at the stars, she keeps asking herself, why do we see it this way? It hasn't occurred to anybody to wonder, why are the stars the way they are against the backdrop of the satellites? Why is it this way? And so that's what leads her down the road of starting to think, what if we're looking at it wrong? And we need to be thinking about how we're thinking in order to make a discovery. So that's how I navigated myself through my note cards and ultimately ended up with what will be a scene of her changing her perspective in order to access what she wants to think about and what that process looks like as she finds her way.
Cool. Get it on the page.
I know. I'll get it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's the hard part, but I'll get it done, I promise.